Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new box office breakdown show here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Zinnerberg. Today, we're breaking down the highly talked about box office weekend that was here domestically from June 16th to June 18th, where we saw the release of The Flash and Elemental from DC and Pixar. We're going to break down the domestic this past weekend, as well as looking at the overall 2023 domestic and worldwide charts and previewing what's coming out this upcoming week in theaters. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I do this show every single Monday. I also do other movie reviews weekly, TV shows reviews weekly. I also do movie rankings. I'm getting very much back into that. I love doing that for you guys. So those are also back on the channel. So please subscribe, ring the bell as we trudge to 160 subscribers. Comment down below. What are your thoughts on the box office this weekend? What should DC do? What should Pixar do? What should they have learned from this previous weekend? And what are you going to see in theaters this upcoming weekend? Or will you not? And also, please like the video, guys, the thumbs up button. So this is going to be a longer video because there's a lot of explaining to do for a lot of these movies on this list. So let's get into this past weekend's domestic box office, which is June 16th to June 18th, where we saw the highly anticipated debut of the Warner Brothers Discovery, obviously, DC film The Flash, which only opened to $55.7 million at the domestic box office. This has been a total flop at the box office. This is a film that is well over $200 million without advertising, all that advertising that they put into the movie. This is it costs a lot of money, let's just say, to make. And this is a movie that's been built up for months since DC and Warner Brothers Discovery showed The Flash to select people at CinemaCon. You know, you had David Zaslav saying that this is the greatest comic book movie of all time. James Gunn portraying it. Having guys like Tom Cruise say it was a fantastic film. And then the critics and the reviewers saying this is one of the best DC films of all time. All these things. And there's a lot of controversy. We know the Ezra Miller situation, which has really been tainting this film. We also know that I think a lot of people don't know if this is going to be connected in any way to what James Gunn is doing for the DCU moving forward. But $55.7 million is an awful opening. I mean, if it just had like a 7 in front of it, it wouldn't even be a good opening. A crazy development. They were pushing this film down a lot of people's throats, both with reviews, also with advertisements. They were heavily promoting this movie. Not just The Flash, but Michael Keaton's Batman and Batfleck being into it. It isn't just a Flash film. There's Batman, Supergirl, and Zod involved and heavily promoted in the trailers. A shocking turn of events. And right now, it's $200 million as a production budget, not even including advertising. You saw how much they put into advertising. And this continues an awful year for Warner Brothers Discovery, and more importantly, DC, which is off to an awful start at their halfway mark of the year. Blue Beetle will hit theaters on August 18th, which really is usually where we wrap up the summer movie season. And then you have Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom coming out December 20th of this year. So still two more movies to go, but those movies should be very, very nervous based on these first 2 movies of the year. But even if we take a step back and look at the DCU as a whole, they haven't gotten a film close to a $100 million opening since the theatrical cut of Justice League all the way back in 2017. DC was on a hot start out of the gate with the DCEU. Man of Steel opening to $116 million domestically. It got up to $667 million worldwide. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which was a couple years later, opened to $166 million and made $872 worldwide. Then you had Suicide Squad, which a lot of people forget was a monster hit for DC in 2016. It opened to $133 and it had a worldwide gross of $745 million. Wonder Woman opened with $100 million, got to over $100 million worldwide. And then Justice League got to 93 opening with a 655 worldwide gross. Since that point, the DCEU has mightily struggled at the box office. Now, while Aquaman opened very low to $67 million, that went on to be a $1 billion movie. So, again, we can throw Aquaman, I guess, as their last big hit. It was not a great opening weekend, but that was the last big-time hit for DC, and that was the winter of 2018, which is now 4.5 years ago. Let's now look at the rest of DC since Aquaman. Shazam 1 opened to $53 million and grossed $363. Now, the movie is the second cheapest on production budget of the entire DCEU. So that was still deemed a success for Warner Brothers at the time and DC. Birds of Prey, though, was not. It was it opened to $33 million, and its overall growth was $200 million. This is the first kind of real red flag for DC. Then the COVID happened, and Wonder Woman 1984 was in select theaters, but again, that was pushed basically exclusively to HBO Max at the time. But then during the pandemic, The Suicide Squad, James Gunn's own movie, only opened $26 million and only grossed 167 worldwide. That was a big disappointment, even for the pandemic. But now you look at the last year of DC. Black Adam opened to $67 million. It grossed 391 worldwide, which is they did not turn a profit on Black Adam. That basically destroyed the last hope of DC of bringing Henry Cavill back, and The Rock trying to put his way into running DC. And then this year was the embarrassment of Shazam! Fury of the Gods, only opening to $30 million, and it finished up its run at $132 million. The Flash opening to 129 worldwide. DC is in trouble, especially if characters like the Flash, including a Batman, if that movie can't open very big, I think especially Blue Beetle should feel very nervous. It doesn't really matter if James Gunn says that Blue Beetle is the first character of the next couple of movies that will be used in his DC universe. Casual fans don't know that, and they might see both Blue Beetle and really Aquaman 2 as fire sale movies. And again, these movies that were filmed with the other regime and not supposed to be the ending of that regime. It's supposed to continue things. DC and Warner Brothers need to take a big look at themselves, especially because Andy Muschietti, the day of the release of The Flash, was announced by Gunn to be the director of his new Batman movie, Brave and the Bold, in his Batman of his DC universe. And who knows, that may have been too quick to the punch, and moviegoers were not pleased. A B cinema score was really bad for this movie. I think what a lot of led to happen was the word of mouth wasn't good as much as DC and Warner Brothers wanted you to think, which was that leading into the release, it was one of the best comic book movies of all time. And then when people saw it, and even if people liked the movie, they saw it as a disappointment. So overall, an awful weekend for DC. James Gunn has a lot of thinking to do as he moves into his era of DC, and it will make things even more testy as we get into Blue Beetle, which is now exactly 2 months away now from Blue Beetle, and 6 months away from Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So a lot more to do for DC. We'll see how they do now rest of the year advertising those two movies. The other big, huge disappointment this past weekend was Pixar with their release of Elemental in its opening weekend, only opening to $29.6 million. Now, this is another embarrassment for Pixar. They've really struggled since the pandemic, when they've basically, Disney did this to them, but also the quality has definitely dipped in Pixar over the last couple of years, which is that they've kind of trained their audiences to wait at home and watch these movies on Disney Plus. Again, after Onward opened, Onward was in theaters for 1.5 weeks before the pandemic. Then it went straight to Disney Plus. And then you had films like Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, which were Disney Plus exclusives with no extra price. And then last year, Pixar tried to get back in the movie theater game with Lightyear, which was a total bomb for Disney Pixar. And here comes incoming another one with Elemental. There's not really any buzz about this movie. There's no famous lead performances in this film as well. And I think Pixar now also has a lot to learn. These type of simple, not really special stories, they just can't expect people to walk back into a movie theater now and just expect, because it's a Pixar movie, that will get people in the theater. Those days are probably long gone unless something has to change mightily with Pete Docter at the head of Pixar. Sure, this story, I saw it today, not really a great movie. I thought the movie was okay. And you can just tell also it's frustrating because they thought, well, who cares? We can do a story about fire and water. And now just who doesn't matter because we're Pixar and people will come to the movies. And we are far beyond a time where moviegoers just know that if a Pixar movie's out, they have to go see it. It's not must-watched in the theater anymore. And because of how quickly some of these Pixar bombs have been in theaters, people know that they can just wait, and they know that they'll be on Disney Plus very soon. So a lot to rethink for Pixar. They don't have another movie for another year until Elio comes out next year. A lot of rethinking to do for Pixar. This was one of the more stronger brands in Hollywood, and now it's kind of fallen off a lot. And we shall see how Pixar regroups in the next year leading up to Elio's release. The only winner, I guess, in the top 5 this weekend is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse from Sony in its third weekend, only dropping another 51% in its third weekend with a lot of competition. $27.2 million. Again, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in its third weekend only made $2 less million than Elemental did, a Pixar film, in its opening weekend. That is a big wake-up call for Disney and Pixar. Now Across the Spider-Verse is up to 279.8 domestically. It is absolutely smashing the overall run of the first film. And as of now, the release date for the next one, Beyond the Spider-Verse, is in March, which is 10 months from now. But we'll see. There've been speculation that even the voice actors haven't even voiced the performances yet, which usually takes a year or two before the movie even comes out. So we'll see. But Sony, out of nowhere, has become the big winner of the box office in June. I think that'll probably stay that way for the remainder of the month. In fourth place, in its second weekend, taking a huge drop-off, is Transformers: Rise of the Beast, dropping 66% in its second weekend, 20.7 domestic. It's now up to $101 million domestically, but still, major drop-off for Transformers: Rise of the Beast, already getting passed up by Spider-Verse, which came out a week earlier. We'll see if Paramount does want to move forward with that Transformers G.I. Joe movie that they set up at the end of this movie. They clearly have plans at Paramount. Again, Paramount's not done with Mission Impossible as being their big movie of the summer. But Transformers has clearly lost a lot of its luster since the Michael Bay days, and we'll see if Paramount does want to continue with this franchise moving forward. And then Little Mermaid wraps up in fifth place in its fourth weekend, dropping another 52%, $11 million, up to $253. Its big problem is it's just been doing really bad internationally and okay domestically. This is another big time look in the mirror. Disney having an awful weekend. Little Mermaid definitely did not perform as the way they thought, and obviously Pixar has not been very successful in years. So a lot of things to recoup as Disney moves forward for the remainder of the summer. When we get to the overall domestic charts, Super Mario Brothers is still 572, top of the world domestically so far, followed by Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at 344. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is now number 3 domestic this year at 279, with Little Mermaid now at 4th place at 253. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is number 5 with 214 million domestic. John Wick Chapter 4 is at 6. Creed 3 at 7. Fast X at 8. Scream 6 at 9. Transformers Rise of the Beast at 10. With Transformers getting into the $100 million club, we now have 10 films over $100 million this year. And really 2 right now over the $300 million mark. We really need to see that number go up as well. The Flash in its opening weekend is number 17 so far this year domestically. Worldwide wise, Super Mario, so the only billion-dollar movie of the year, $1.3 billion. Again, animated movies have been doing well, with especially if you look at Spider-Verse and you look at Super Mario, and Elemental has completely missed the boat in that thing. And also Elemental coming out 2 weeks after another premiere, widely acclaimed animated film, which is tough to do, and they clearly did not come through. Guardians now is number 2 worldwide this year, 819 million. Fast X is at number 3 of 687 million worldwide. Across the Spider-Verse is now at number 6 with 488 now worldwide. It did not perform as strongly internationally as I think a lot of people were expecting, but domestically, it absolutely came through. Little Mermaid's at number 7, 465. That movie needs a lot more money, and it's not even going to reach. It does not look like that Little Mermaid will even reach $500 million. It was on track early with Aladdin in 2019, which was a $1 billion film, but Little Mermaid will not even get half of what Aladdin got at the worldwide box office. Quantumania is number 8 with 463. John Wick Chapter 4 is number 9 with 432. And getting into the top 10 this past weekend worldwide is Transformers: Rise of the Beast, 275 worldwide. Very interesting weekend. The first week, the only weekend in June where there's no big blockbuster hitting theaters. The biggest movie hitting theaters this weekend is No Hard Feelings, the comedy with Jennifer Lawrence. Trying to do some counter programming with all the blockbuster superhero films that have been hitting theaters the last couple of weeks. That will be in theaters this upcoming weekend. Asteroid City did release just in LA and New York limited this past weekend, but now this weekend, Asteroid City will be available in wide release as we're heading down the home stretch for the month of June. What are your thoughts on the box office? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys soon.